Well, hello and welcome to Producer Dan. I'm Dan. Thanks so much for stopping by my channel today. So, do you use Pro Tools? If so, did you know you have access to a great little music sampler called Structure Free? Structure Free is part of the virtual instruments software that ships with Pro Tools. They introduced it in Pro Tools 8 back in 2008. And today I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you can use it in your next music project. Alright, so here we are with the first example on how I use the structure-free sampler in Pro Tools. I recently did a video on producing a song with my toy guitar. And it's a cheap plastic toy guitar, and so I needed to make some sounds to create a full song. I needed bass sounds, I needed pad sounds, and so I used the plugins in Pro Tools to mess up the sounds as best I could. And so it did force me to use the sampler in Pro Tools because sampling is not something I normally do in the genre that I work in my productions. But I think going forward it certainly will, now that I've kind of got my interest up. But anyway, back to this video. I'm going to show you how I got this sound. That's a fun little pad sound that I used in the song, and I got it from a sound like this. This came from the guitar. That's a strummed major E chord, and this is how it originally sounded. Okay, very basic. So I'm going to show you how I got this sound. First of all, I put a fade here at the beginning, and I covered up the strummy parts, and I also put a fade at the end, and then turned it up. So now that we have the sample sound that we want, I'm going to bounce this down to my audio clips file on my desktop. Now this is a stereo clip. I'm going to bounce this down to a mono clip because I don't need it to be in stereo. I'm going to call it Major E. Okay, now that we have the file bounced down to the sound clips folder, I'm going to open a track for Structure Free. So I'm going to go up here to Track, New. I need one mono instrument track. So I'm going to create that. And we're going to go to Plugins and find under Instruments, Structure Free Mono. And there it is. You want to record ready the track so you can hear it. It opens with this sine wave already there. Okay, and I just want to quickly show you this. If you look under the drop-down menu, Structure Free comes loaded with all of these different loops and instruments, drum sounds, pad sounds. So there's a lot there. You could spend hours just going through all of these things that are preloaded with Structure Free. But that's not what we're going to cover today. I'm going to remove this by right-clicking here at the top of this yellow piece, and I'm going to remove this patch. And now we're going to place our audio file, our little sample, into this area by simply dragging it and dropping it into this space. We can close that. Okay, so we have Major E loaded into Structure Free. So I love that. It sounds like an organ. And just by doing that, you can play all of these major chords. The sound we want to get is this sound here. Okay, obviously there's effects and EQ on that. That's the note I used. That's the chord I used. You can see for this particular sound, I used this EQ and this fuzz wah effect. I'll just drag those down to the instrument track, kind of copy them and drag them down. And the sound now sounds exactly like our sound that we wanted. So that's my first example on how to use structure free. In my next example, I'm going to show you how to divide up a pre-existing drum loop into separate little drum samples, and then we can make a song or a groove from those samples. Okay, so here we are, and here are these drum beats that I will sample. I have two actually that I'm going to blend together in the end, and you'll see what I mean. Here's the first one. Here's the second drum loop. This one kind of has a lazy beat right here. It's a little late and it's kind of fun. Anyway, I thought these two beats would be fun to kind of mix and match. I'm going to join these together because it's going to make separating them easier down the road. And now they are one. And now I want to separate them, and I want to separate them on the grid. Right now the grid is on eighth notes. If this were a more complicated beat, you could separate them on the 16ths, but that's not something we're going to do. We're going to do it on the eighth note. And I'm going to come over here to Edit, Separate Clip, and I'm going to do it on the grid. We could do it on transients, and that's a different example, but for this particular example, it's important we do it on the grid. So all of our samples are exactly the same size. This gives you the option to separate it just a few milliseconds prior to the line. We don't need to do that. Everything is lined up. So there we are. And now you can see they're all separated into their own little sample. So we're going to be able to take all of these little samples and create our own loops, our own grooves. And when I highlight everything, you can see all of the new clips that it's made. I'm going to rename them into their own little groups. So, I mean, yes, I'm going to mix them together in the example, but I want to keep them separate in name. So I'm going to rename all of these little clips. Right now it's just audio 1, and it gets very confusing with all these numbers. It's kind of dry, there's no reverb, it's very tight. So we're going to come here to this drop-down window. We're going to auto rename, and I'm just going to say dry beat. And then I'm going to change this to the number 1, and it will rename these beats dry beat 1 through 8. And there they are. And then this beat I'm going to rename late beat because it has that late kind of lazy beat. So we have dry beat 1 through 8 and then late beat 1 through 8. Okay, so I'm going to highlight the beginning, hold down my shift key, highlight the end, and all of these are now highlighted, and I'm going to export the files to my clip folder on my desktop. And now we can see them right here in the folder, dry beat 1 through dry beat 8, and then late beat 1 through late beat 8. Now we have to go to our structure-free plugin. We highlight the first one, hold the shift key, highlight the last one, and move all 16 of these samples into structure-free. And there they are. Now, I have a lot of them. Like I said, there's 16, so I'm going to put them on each key. You can choose to do all black keys or all white keys or all the keys. And since I have very limited space here on my MIDI keyboard, I'm going to choose each key, and it's starting at C1. And there they are. You can see them now loaded here in the sampler, down here at the bottom, starting at C1. Okay, and now I'm going to record ready our beat track. I'm just going to mute our audio. So now the sounds that we hear will be coming from structure free. Now this is the easiest and most efficient way to turn these samples into MIDI notes so we can arrange them and manipulate them into our own grooves. So we're going to go up here to Event, and then we're going to choose Event Options. We're going to choose Step Input. This is where you have to make sure your MIDI keyboard is plugged in and ready to go. This is where you choose the notes. For example, we've divided the grid into eighth notes, so we want to choose eighth notes here in the setup input. And we begin just by pressing C1, and we want to hit all of these notes, and you'll see them entered in the MIDI window in the instrument track. Also, the destination track is beat, and you just want to make sure that matches the track that you're using. So we've muted our audio track, and I'm just going to play the MIDI track below. So all the sounds you're hearing are now coming from the structure-free sampler. Okay, so not only are they loaded on the keys from here to here, but now we have a MIDI window with all of the samples represented by their own little MIDI event. And this is where it gets kind of fun. Now we can go into a MIDI window. We can start moving things around to a beat that we want. So maybe we can move this snare down so there's like 2 snares hitting there. We can actually even remove one. So it would be fun maybe to move one of these over to this side. Oh, I like that. I'd like to have this come in and out. So in this case, I really want to have this MIDI event kind of play throughout this clip. And I want it to come in every other eighth note. And in order for them to play at the same time as a different MIDI event, you have to do a special paste. First of all, I'd have to copy this note, so Command C, and you can do a special paste by going through the edit there. And there's the shortcut, by the way. It's Option M. So I'm going to do the shortcut here. I'm going to place the cursor where I want it. Option M. I'm going to do it again here. Option M, and so on throughout the clip. Let's listen to that and see what it sounds like. That's kind of fun. I really want to double this up again here. I want to go bump, bump, up. So I want to double this note, double snare here. So copy this and the special merge, so that's Option M. So now it sounds like this. I like this sound. I'm going to try and move this somewhere over here. Maybe right here, where it's kind of missing something. Option M. Kind of missing it here too, actually. So obviously you could have a lot of fun doing this. You could make it more complicated like I've done here unnecessarily, or you could simplify it. So in my third example, I'm going to take a piece of music, the song that I did in my last video, using the sounds just from that plastic guitar. I'm going to take a piece of that song and kind of chop that up into beats, into segments to make a different groove. Okay, so here we are in example number 3 where I'm going to chop up this music sample. Now keep in mind this sample is from a song that I did with that cheap toy guitar, so it was an experiment, so I'm just kind of keeping the experiment going by doing this. And in this particular clip, I've taken out the main vocal and left the background vocals. You're going to hear a little funny chipmunk sound in the background where I kind of pitch shifted I was using the plugins in Pro Tools, so whatever I had I used, so I pitch shifted my voice up. So you're going to hear like a little chipmunk sound, and I also lowered it as well. So I just kind of wanted to explain that's why that's there. I was just kind of using everything in the box. So anyway, here's the clip we're going to sample. I take a step toward the edge to see more clearly, and I won't let anyone take me down. Gotta hold on now. And it goes on. So I plan to chop this up into some music samples, create a different groove with it, and then go back to our beat that we did earlier and kind of put a beat underneath that, and then I'm going to sample my vocal, my ad-lib vocal from this song and place it on top, and we'll have a little finished product at the end. So first thing I'm going to do is chop this up. I know kind of what I want to do. I want to have like not full segments of the song, but long segments of music that I can start and stop and start and stop. And I'll show you when I'm finished, but I'm mainly going to do some kind of creative separating at some of the beats, but I want to get some phrases, some musical phrases, and some chord changes as well. That's my goal with this. So I know I want to start there. I want to make a cut here, so Control B. I'm going to take this out. I'm just going to start from here. So I'm going to use that as one segment because I know I'm going to repeat that over and over again, and it does change chords here. I know I want to have this all one phrase. So I'm going to make a cut here as well. I won't let anyone take me down. Gotta hold on now. Hold on now. I'll make a cut here. Hold on now. I like this chord change here with the guitar. Okay, so we have enough music there, so I'm going to erase this, and let's take a look at this, zoom in on it. Okay, highlight the first one, hold shift, highlight the last one, and here are those new beats. I'm going to, of course, rename them. So auto rename, I'm going to call this chops. And then GHON, that stands for gotta hold on now. And then I'm going to put the number 1 here, and that'll number all of our new chops, 1 through 8. And of course, I'm going to export them as files to my clip folder on my desktop. And so I have a new track open here called Chops, and I've instantiated the structure-free plugin, and I'm going to load the new chop samples. Gotta hold on now. 1 through 8. So highlight the first one, shift, highlight the last one, and drag them all into structure. And I'm going to put them on the white keys just because it's easier to play that way. There we are. So we're going to have some fun with that. Here's a good time to show you some of the features it has. Of course, you can turn up your clip. You can rename your patch, which I'm going to do here. I'm going to call this Chops Gotta Hold On Now. You can also pan right and left. So you can change the pitch of your sample. It's good to note it does change the speed when you change the pitch. On this other page, you can turn up the release so you don't have to hold down the key. For example, I'm pressing it now and it stops when I let go, but if I turn this release up, so it plays the whole thing, and that could be useful if that's the kind of music you're going to do. It also has high pass filters and low pass filters that you can add to the sound. Alright, so I think I've come up with a fun little groove here just for demonstration's sake. And after I lay this down, maybe we'll put some drums underneath it, and then I'll layer a vocal on top of this. Alright, if you've hung on this long in the video, thank you very much for doing so. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful to you. Again, if you have Pro Tools and you haven't discovered this great little sampler that comes with Pro Tools, I hope this gave you a nice introduction to it. I hope you're able to use it in your musical projects in the future, or just use it to have some fun. And so I'm going to play you out to the end of the video. Thank you very much for stopping by the channel. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Thank you very much for stopping by, and I'll see you in my next video. Take care.